Dr. David Lee, a consultant clinical psychologist and performance coach from UK, continues to practice in the UAE as well as UK while residing in Dubai. David works with individuals, couples, families, groups, and organizations to fulfill their potential and overcome core obstacles to progress. David is focused not only on treating problems but also on helping others to overcome adversity, trauma, and emotional distress in order to help them achieve peak levels of performance.
Well, first of all, I'm relatively new to Dubai. Nearly 18 months I've been here. My journey, as Samir said, I'm from the UK. I was born and raised in Manchester. Quite a keen football fan, Manchester United fan. I developed an interest in psychology, I guess, kind of in my teenage years. Really, I'd always been fascinated by people, by what inspires people, their behaviour, what motivates people, but also had a real curiosity for why people struggle. How their thinking plays a role in the way that they struggle, the role of emotions. And I think that developed quite early on because my childhood was quite a lonely one. I had two older brothers, but who were much older really. I was the youngest by 9 years. So I spent a lot of time on my own as a child, kind of introspecting. I developed a hobby when I was around about the age of 8. I actually took up Taekwondo, martial arts, and took that to quite a high level. I was a black belt at quite a young age.
What age?
I was 12. Yeah, so I started at 8 and I was black belt at 12 and a second dan black belt by the age of 14.
So are you the same level of black belt of somebody who's very senior? I mean, could you...
Yeah, they were the equivalents basically. Yeah, as a child of that age, you're classed as a junior black belt, but then you step up. I think it's when you get to 15, it changes really. And I competed internationally. I was on the national team, and so that was. I say I was quite a shy, introverted child when I was young. I spent a lot of time on my own, and I guess a lot of people would probably say I was, quite socially anxious. I had low self-esteem. And it was really taking up Taekwondo that was kind of the making of me, I think, in terms of developing my confidence, but also inspired me in terms of how people can, go from, having zero confidence really, a real lack of confidence in their own ability and their own ability to interact with people, to actually thinking, yeah, I can make something of myself, I can go out there, I can win medals and trophies, I can stand on a podium. And I took a lot of inspiration from some of my role models at that time, some of my coaches and instructors. So that really got me quite curious. My own journey, really, my own development through shyness, loneliness, low self-esteem, kind of got me interested in how I might be able to help other people. So that was kind of my early interest in psychology.
So you're no more shy or introverted anymore, are you?
There's a side of me that is,
okay.
And that's certainly my. I'm married. I have a son. I have 2 stepdaughters as well, and a lot of the conversations I have with my wife, a lot of the very personal conversations. She's the person who knows me very, very well, so she sees that slightly shy, introverted side of me. I guess I've overcompensated over the years by working with my clients, by spending a lot of time with people, by doing a lot of training, a lot of public speaking, and a lot of coaching more recently. Like yourself, Samir, I do a lot of coaching now as well.
At 8, you said you got into Taekwondo, but what was it like till 8?
That's where I say I remember being just very, very lonely as a child and sort of being left to my own devices in many ways, and kind of struggling in a way to sort of make friends, to build close friendships with other children, always feeling that I might be rejected. I guess I had quite an enmeshed relationship with my mom at the time. I guess it was sort of quite a lonely childhood. And, a bit beyond that, and I say taking up my hobby and kind of starting to very, very gradually develop my confidence, there was sort of a stark contrast then. But it's certainly a time that I draw on, and when I work with a lot of my clients now, a lot of my therapy clients in psychology, is something that sort of I look for, and it resonates with me when people talk about lonely childhoods and this need for kind of validation, because I didn't have a close relationship with certainly with my dad. I had a very close relationship with my mum when I was very young, probably too close, too dependent, and as I got older, that grew kind of more distant, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, so a bit of an early sort of adversity there, which I think, obviously.
But that shaped you.
I think so. Yeah. I think I can sort of use that now to, to help other people. I think it's given me a sort of depth in my being able to understand people. I'm not saying that in a kind of grandiose way that I get all clients that come to me and I instantly, I get it. But I think it's certainly it's given me an insight into kind of how people can struggle in their childhood, but how they can transform themselves, really.
So, when you got into karate and you got this black belt and everything, did it start crumbling the different things that was around you? I mean, did you get more acceptance into your friends and everything, or?
It kind of did. It gave me more confidence, I think. It gave me more confidence to approach people, and it gave me more, I guess, social confidence, because I guess up until that point I'd sort of been the small kind of shy little boy, kind of hiding in the corner, and I guess taking up martial arts. I was still sort of short and kind of baby faced, but it certainly didn't make me a target for sort of people in my peers and in my school, because it stood out. People knew I was the kind of the karate kid of the time or of the school. And so they didn't.
That was the time when the movie came out, right around?
Yeah, it was just after that, actually. Yeah, I actually watched Karate Kid. Really inspired me, as did some of the older Bruce Lee movies,
okay.
And sort of Jackie Chan and that kind of thing. But yeah, I certainly remember watching the Karate Kid sort of early on.
Wax on, wax off.
That's right. Yeah, Mr. Miyagi. And it was a few years after that I started Taekwondo.
All right. And. You just dived into Dubai, or did you go somewhere else, or did you do something else? So you did your bachelor's, master's, and doctorate in psychology.
That's right. Yeah.
Do people usually do that, or they go other tangent?
The pathway into being a clinical psychologist, and this varies internationally, but within the UK, is to do a psychology degree, a bachelor's. You take maybe 3 or 4 subjects, and one of those I did was psychology. So, I realised I was pretty good at it, and I had a real interest and passion for it. So then I went on to do my bachelor's degree in psychology at the University of Manchester. Yeah. I then worked as an assistant psychologist and as a research assistant. And at that time I did a master's degree as well. It was kind of a master's by research, so I submitted a thesis, which I did again when I did my doctorate. And my doctorate was in clinical psychology at the University of Leeds. That's a 3-year kind of full-time program. So all in all, there's kind of a bachelor's degree 3 years, master's degree 2 years, doctorate 3 years, and some kind of on-the-job training throughout.
But in UK it's very accepted, right? Socially, they're accepted to go to a psychologist. Here in UAE, I think there is a lot of filters, and people have a different perception about psychology, or going and visiting a psychologist, or thinking, how do I reveal that I have a problem in my mind, or is that something that you face on a regular basis over here, or?
I would say still, internationally today and across the world, that there's still a huge stigma surrounding mental health difficulties and
Why is that?
mental health in general. I think it's a lack of understanding. I think it's sometimes stereotyping. Sometimes there is ignorance, but I think what hasn't helped is kind of a bias towards a purely kind of medical kind of driven approach, which sees that if people have mental health problems, that it must be something in the brain that maybe can't be fixed, or there might be a need for medication, which sometimes can be helpful for people, which is kind of the domain of psychiatry, really. But sometimes this idea that if somebody is depressed, or they have a problem with anxiety or an eating disorder, that this is completely unfixable. It's there's no hope. So I think sometimes that message is sort of filtered out, and that's something that I'm passionate about changing. Is that people can overcome mental health problems, or with more long-standing difficulties, people can certainly learn to live their lives in a richer, more meaningful, more optimistic way. And I would say, even in the UK, we still have quite a lot of stigma surrounding seeing a psychologist. Yeah, there's still a lot. Here, I think in the UAE, I think there's a nice move towards certainly much more funding going into healthcare, mental health services, and certainly a willingness to kind of work on stigma. But I guess because that's in its infancy at the minute, there still is that kind of perception that if you're seeing a psychologist, there must be something very seriously wrong.
I have a personal ideology or a philosophy, where I think, when you see these people who are going through these psychological problems, I often feel that, the problem more than them is because of the people around them, right? It's because of the people around them that they have become like this. But they don't come into the picture when you're doing the treatment. Only this person comes, and you try to fix this person, but really a lot of times the problem is around them. So how do you, is it correct what I'm saying, or?
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly can be. I mean, one of the ways that I try to work now, because I work with, as well as working with adults, I work with children as well, and I work with families. And a lot of the work that we do with children is really systemic. It's about working with families, sometimes about working with schools and the education system as well. So in that way, we get to work with the system and the people around the individual, with children and teenagers, much more so with the adult clients I see. It's much more the expectation is that you will work with this person and try to help them, which sometimes can be useful, but as you say, sometimes it's the people around them. It could be their working environment, it could be their boss, it could be that there's problems within the family, problems in the relationship between husband and wife. So I'm a great believer in trying to work with the other people as well. Certainly trying to understand how the environment and how other people impact on the psychology of that person.
So this is something that we discussed last time when we were at the coffee shop. I was talking about how when I did my NLP and coaching and everything, I realized one of the things that they said was psychology in the past, at least you corrected me one day, was about fixing the past or resolving the past, and coaching is all about looking at the future and trying to address that. You're saying there's a lot of shift that has happened in the industry right now.
I think so, yeah. I mean, you're certainly right what you say. I think it's a lot, psychology has been focused a lot on the past experiences, of individuals. So, going from way back, kind of the development of approaches like psychoanalysis, so Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung and people like that, were certainly focused on helping people to resolve issues from their past, memories, relationships with mom and dad, and kind of seeing that as being a block to progress, that, if you maybe had a very difficult relationship with your dad in childhood and you couldn't resolve that, then you couldn't possibly move on. I think we've moved away from that, and I think with certain problems that people face, there is a need to kind of resolve issues from the past. Maybe people are stuck, they've not moved on, or maybe haven't grieved the people that they've lost, or haven't managed to overcome trauma from their past. Or just, haven't really processed difficult experiences they have. But much more so, there's a movement towards kind of moving forward, kind of, for example, a very common approach now that which we use is cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT, which kind of comes from, was developed in the USA with some input from Europe, and the UK is now kind of a worldwide movement, and the various sort of offshoots of that. And that's really about kind of trying to help people to, first of all, establish what their problems are, to set some goals, and to work with the therapist in much the same way that a coach does. So moving forward, where do we want to get to? What, working collaboratively, and trying to change things in the here and now, really. Not ignoring the past, but trying to make progress, trying to help that person to create some changes, both in their behaviour and in the way that they think, and in terms of relationships as well.
So, what is the biggest challenge over here in that context, as a psychologist and a coach, when you work together? What is the biggest challenge that you face, especially in this region?
I think sometimes is actually trying to help people to understand, because we're in such a wonderful kind of rich multicultural context here in the UAE. and that's a wonderful thing, but it also brings with it some challenges because people come from different cultures, different religious backgrounds, they've got different experiences in the family, different kind of norms and values, and their understanding of difficulties sometimes is kind of enmeshed with how they grew up or with religion, with faith, and sometimes it's a great thing. It presents some challenges and gives a lot of depth to the work that we do. But one of the kind of stereotypes that I find is that I'm very much in my work often put in the expert role. That you're the doctor, you're the expert. Could you kindly tell us what's wrong? Could you then kind of fix the problem? So almost kind of this expert, you can do something, which will almost like if you go to a doctor and he gives you some medication, you go and take it. And what I try and socialize people to is the idea that, well, yes, I'm trained in psychology and I'm experienced in psychology, but you have a wealth of experience in yourself and in your circumstances. And maybe together we can put the two together and work together to form this relationship where I can help you with some things. You can kind of let me get to know you a little bit more to help you. So it's a two-way process, and we're working together on the goals and to make progress.
True. Like what I say as a coach, the work has to be done by you. We can only show the direction, right?
Yeah. I think that's certainly something in transformational coaching that is the idea that in coaching, I guess broadly, maybe similar in therapy as well, that we can talk about three types really. There's the kind of the educator who just kind of gives their client education. This is what you should do. This is what you need to do. This is what the research shows us. This is what theories suggest what you should do. Then there's the kind of the inspirational coach who just kind of is very upbeat, motivating, and high five. And, everything will be great, and you just need to believe in yourself really positively. And I think in transformational coaching, which I see is very, very similar to being a psychologist and a therapist. It's a lot about trying to work with that individual in terms of sometimes dealing with some painful stuff, maybe trying to help them to change some things which might be difficult to change some habits or change some behaviours which are well worn. So that, I think it kind of draws on all of those. Really trying to educate, inspire, but also really trying to.
It's a mix of all three. Right?
Absolutely, yeah. And building that relationship with the person as well.
You mentioned a while ago that you work a lot with children as well.
That's right.
Was it the case before? I mean, in the past, did we have a lot of child patients for psychologists, or is it a recent phenomenon where more and more children are looking for this kind of help?
Yeah, I think there's been a steady move towards recognizing that children, teenagers can have emotional difficulties, behavioural difficulties, and as well, which I think is a good thing, rather than we wait till adulthood and then fix problems that maybe started much earlier. I think in Europe, in the US, Australia, some of those services have been child and adolescent mental health services that have been fairly well established for a good amount of time now. So I'm a psychologist who unusually hasn't just focused on working with adults or with say young children. I've crossed the lifespan in a sense. I've worked with children, I work with adults. I tend to I think I work best with adults and teenagers personally. I do work with younger children. I mainly work with parents.
What is the youngest patient you've had?
I'm very young actually. Sometimes I get very kind of toddler age, maybe 2, 3, if there are kind of feeding problems and things like that. Yeah, and in that sense, I often see the clients are the parents or the family.
Yeah. So it's the parents actually who are actually accepting that there is something that needs to be fixed, more than the child himself coming and saying I have a problem, right?
Yeah, I mean it can be a combination, and sometimes depending on age. So sometimes with some of the teenage clients that I work with, they're actually coming in saying I'm having some real difficulty here, I'm having problems with relationships, or with some of the younger children. It's interesting, their parents will bring them along, and sometimes that's where I meet that challenge of can you fix my son or daughter, and can you do something? And sometimes I try to educate them. It's a little bit about working with you to try and get on board and see what we can do between us to help.
So every client, do they go through medication, or is it without medication also you try to resolve things at times?
Yeah. It really depends. If I see somebody who's maybe grief-stricken, so they've maybe lost somebody and they're really struggling with that, and they need some help with that, we maybe wouldn't look at medication in that sense. We wouldn't think about it as say depression and you need antidepressant medication. We'd say, some talking therapy, some counselling could help them to overcome that over time. With other people who are depressed, sometimes they can benefit from a period of time overseen by a medical doctor, usually a psychiatrist, who can prescribe medication, keep a close eye on that, and in conjunction with some talking therapy, that can be helpful. So it really depends. We have to sort of make a bit of a judgment call.
I just was reminded of a conversation that I had with a client of mine where I was doing the pitch to the company and I was talking about what I do. At the end of the presentation, they said, "So you're a psychologist without a certificate?"
Okay.
So I said, "No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just a coach, and that's what I do." But the question right now I want to ask you is, as a coach, where should I draw the line and say to the client, you need real help from a doctor, and I should not be the one who's trying to fix this for you right now.
Yeah.
So where do I draw the line?
Well, there's an interesting overlap, I think, between therapy and coaching. They're pretty unwell. Life's difficult. It's not just a sense of being kind of dissatisfied. There's quite a lot of dysfunction going on. And I think with coaching, it's much more about helping people to to reach their goals, to live a happier life, to maybe achieve success in a certain area. It might be, in terms of career, it might be in terms of family. So generally coaching clients are not, they're not kind of mentally or emotionally unwell, they're not completely destabilized by their circumstances, but they're wanting some degree of change. They're wanting some help to reach the next level.
Generally. But why I ask this question is because I do corporate engagements, so I go into the organization and I start doing the coaching. So I have all kinds of people within the organization, and I've had clients who have been going to psychologists outside and going for therapies.
Yeah.
But the fact remains that he wasn't happy over there.
Yeah.
He was taking the medication, he
Yeah.
was doing the therapy,
Yeah.
but he was finding solace with me.
Yeah.
And he was feeling more different when he had conversations with me.
Yeah.
But again, my question is, I would find these kind of clients because I'm not going personal one-on-one sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes within the organization there are people who are going through depression. Or
Absolutely. Yeah.
So where do I draw the line?
I just think actually this is this person pretty depressed. They're in a very difficult situation. So maybe we need to start there, and later we can work on the real success. The kind of from ground zero upwards. I think for other people, for some people, they're just really disillusioned by their circumstances. So like you were saying before, Samir, about where you were working when you were in Doha, you decided this wasn't for you all of a sudden. You woke up one day and you said, I'm really disillusioned here. Why am I doing this? I need to look forward to the next step in my life. It doesn't take depression sometimes or a mental health problem for somebody to get to that level where they realise actually they're a bit stuck. And this is, there's a way forward. I always think that with the depressed clients I work with, often they can't see a way forward. And that's where we start. They're struggling, they feel quite trapped, they feel hopeless, they're struggling with motivation. So there is a real kind of biological side to it, is that they're really struggling with their energy levels and motivation. Often with coaching clients, they're motivated to change. So they might feel disillusioned with their circumstances, but they can see, hey, this is where I want to go. I really want to make that change. I want to get out of here. Can you help me to do that? Mm-hmm. And often, when I'm working with coaching clients, I might set some goals initially, or we might kind of sit down and, rack our brains and say, how about you take this route, or have you thought about this idea? And often what I look for is people get inspired. Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. That sounds pretty unique. Whereas when I'm working with people who are kind of in the depths of despair and they're really struggling, they often don't have that spark, so often actually getting them to the point where they can see that there is hope.
Yeah.
There is hope for change here. We can work together, and taking that real compassionate approach. I'm a big believer in compassion in any relationship, in a therapy relationship or in a coaching relationship, or any relationship.
So what I'm hearing is when you're looking for some shift in career in terms of motivation or whatever it is, in those scenarios as a coach you can take the journey forward. Mm-hmm. It is when there is a physical change in the body which is there that you need to work with a psychologist where medication can be prescribed or something like that. Is that
not necessarily
because I had a friend over here, sorry to interrupt,
that's all right.
Who wasn't able to sleep for like days and days and days,
Yeah.
So I've had my conversations with him and it wasn't helping, and then he went to a doctor and he was completely low on energy for so many days because he was not feeling fresh at all. And then he went and started taking these medications and now he's like, but he also says he feels a little numbed out. Says, he says, I don't get excited or anything, So, and he sleeps well.
Yeah.
So,
It's, for some people, medication can be helpful. What I should say is it's not the psychologist. I don't prescribe medication. What I do is purely talking therapy, coaching, working with teams, and doing a lot of training and that kind of thing. I don't think it's that neat a distinction as it's a biological problem or it's psychology. Often that's part of it. Like I say, when somebody's depressed, there often is a biological side. That can be because maybe the person's thinking in a very, very hopeless way. If you think about the world as being a hopeless place, or if you think about yourself as being somebody who's worthless, maybe, we have these beliefs, I guess what we might sometimes refer to as limiting beliefs or core beliefs. I'm worthless, I can never, achieve greater than this, whatever I try will fail. That will have an impact on you physically, emotionally, but also chemically as well. If you think very negatively, we know that negative thinking can have sustained negative thinking can have a really toxic effect on our body and on our body chemistry.
True. And one of the biggest problems with coaching per se is that the entry barrier is so low. There's no body per se which is monitoring or doing anything which is anybody can just walk and say I'm a coach and start being a coach actually. But you've invested all these years into studying and becoming a psychologist. And this is something that we discuss, psychologists does not usually like to be branded as coaches.
That's right.
So why did you make that shift? Why did you decide that, I'd rather be a coach than a psychologist? I mean, you're not being a psychologist anymore, but you would like to promote yourself and be a coach more. What made you make that mind shift?
I mean, for me, it's, I like to keep my psychologist identity and I like to work in that way. But what I see is that lots of psychologists kind of shun coaching. They see it as something that it's not, it's something that a lot of people, will get up on stage and just, talk the talk rather than, walking the talk or walking the walk. And I believe that psychologists can play a role in helping people to achieve success, not just to get from, the way I look at it is kind of numerically, psychology has been very focused on getting people from, say, -10, -20 to 0. You can now live your life in a functional way. That's kind of what therapists do, clinical psychologists. There's an approach called positive psychology, which has come out of the USA, which is very much about getting from 0 upwards, 10 and 20 and onwards. And that's where I see that we could be heading, as well as helping people who are really, really struggling. We could also be helping people to achieve success and to go in higher. So what I see is, the coaches of the world are really inspirational people that we know in the media. Your kind of Tony Robbins and your Brian Tracy's and people like that. They've all got great things to say, and there's actually a lot more psychology in what they say than people give credit to. And I sometimes think that psychologists have kind of shied away from doing that. And we could bring in a lot of psychological theory that could really help people to live not just, functional lives, but really happy, successful, prosperous lives. So I see it as just a nice transition, and there's a bit of a gap really. So when people come to me and they say, "Can you help me?" Initially I try and find out a little bit about the problems and say, well, maybe you're not depressed at the minute. And they say, no, but I want to I want to own global businesses, or I want to kind of give more, I want to do more service on an international level. And I'm thinking, right, you know, coaching is the way forward, but I can hopefully use my knowledge and skills in psychology to build a relationship to help people.
So, as an audience over here, if they were to, you know, think about themselves and see, what would you say is the right time for them to wake up and say, I need to meet someone like you? What is it? Should something happen, or what is it?
I'm a great believer in the notion that we should, you know, constantly engage in this journey of kind of reflection, self-reflection, of personal development. And however you do that, whether it's kind of just taking some time out every day to think about where am I going in my life, am I reaching my goals, am I happy with where I am I happy with my relationships? So, you know, I guess you could divide it into four broad areas. You could say your health, maybe, you know, your wealth, your finances, you know, your time, and you could say your relationships, you know, the love that you have for people, your friendships, your relationships. And, you know, if you look across those areas and you see, well, I'm really happy here, or this is okay, but actually I'm not happy here, I think that could give us some inspiration to seek coaching. Yeah. I think it's an ongoing reflective process, though. You know, some people go through their lives and they don't take time to reflect. They just kind of go through the motions, and life carries them forward.
Yeah. True.
Which is
nothing's challenging them or something.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the reasons why I wanted you to be the second guest today on the show was I wanted you to listen to Simon's story, and then I wanted you to what reflections you have of the teenagers today and people like Simon. What are your thoughts on the generation that's growing up in these days?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, it was absolutely fascinating to hear Simon's story.
Absolutely,
you know, such a wonderful kind of example, role model, I think, to the youth of today. You know, and the tender age of 19, so many fantastic accomplishments. And I think that there was something I touched on earlier when I sort of made a comment. Is something there about not being afraid to sort of venture away from that path and kind of, you know, take the road less travelled sometimes and seek to do things in a different way, in an innovative way. And I guess as, you know, psychologists, we talk about different parts of the brain, the right brain and the left brain. And the left brain people it's a very crude distinction, but left brain people are often people who like systems and like to go along, you know, have a plan for doing things in quite maybe a scientific, logical way. People who are more right brain dominant tend to be more in touch with their intuition and creative abilities, and sometimes they're this kind of, you know, spark to do something different and maybe to give to the world and to give to people in a unique way, which I think lends itself to entrepreneurship really, really well, and what you were talking about, Samir, about not having everything mapped out.
Yeah.
So I think what was really interesting from what Simon was talking about was actually, to stand out from the crowd and to do something that's unique and to change the world in a unique way, to give to people in a way that has a huge knock-on effect. I think demands not being afraid to venture off that kind of path that is already in place. You know, there's lots of expectation on us that we're just going to carry on, you know, doing things in this way. You know, youngsters are going to go to school, they're going to take their exams, you know, you may have a couple of hobbies outside, but actually you're still at school, you're still young, you can't do anything that's unconventional and unique. And what I see is that there's much more opportunity now we have, and especially because the world is much smaller now than it was. We have powers of modern technology to be able to, Simon would say, you know, she only travels once a year and she can be here predominantly in Dubai, but yet have projects in Nepal, Pakistan, and, you know, I think it's much more accessible now.
Any questions? I'm sorry, I didn't. It was too engrossing. But any thoughts or anything that you had, or any insights or whatever you want to pick his brains on? Yeah, sure.
I have something which you sort of touched on. It's is there a developmental development in the gravity of cases from coaching to psychology to psychiatry? And notably, what is the main difference between the last two, which I've personally always been really confused about?
Yeah. Well, if I just take the psychiatry-psychology distinction first, and then we can touch on, treat it as a bit of a two-part question. Psychiatrists are often seen that with more maybe severe problems, or problems that may need long-standing, ongoing care, that the person, the client or the patient, if you like, will be under a psychiatrist and will need regular reviews, maybe every few months or so. Okay. Psychologists come through a different route. Now, clinical psychologists, which is what I am, what I trained in, we first of all undertake a degree in psychology. We then come through the ranks and we might do a master's degree, but our doctorate is in clinical psychology. It's kind of different for other people who might specialise in certain therapeutic approaches. So our specialism really is in talking therapies, is in using psychological theories. We also are very interested in the link between research and practice, what research can tell us about what makes people think in particular ways and behave in particular ways. So the two are kind of quite different, psychiatry and psychology. There is an overlap between them, undoubtedly, and we often, there are often points of contention between the two, sometimes quite strong contention, but sometimes we can work together really well. My experiences of working with some very good psychiatrists is that we respect each other, we're able to agree to disagree sometimes, but make decisions which are helpful for the client or the patient. So that's kind of the psychiatry-psychology distinction. Coaching, so kind of throw that in the mix. The way I see things is I think coaching can be beneficial to so many people. For me, it's kind of quite generic. In my opinion, most people could benefit from having a coach at some stage in their life, and many people benefit from having a coach throughout. In the States, for example, it's much more common and more acceptable to do that. Now, I think that psychologists can also make good coaches. I don't say that generically that every psychologist can make a good coach, but I think that there is a gap there where some people who are trained in psychology could offer a lot to people who could just benefit from changing their life in some way, having a kind of coach. So that's kind of distinction, really. I guess psychiatry and psychology are seen as kind of professions within healthcare, whereas coaches lie out with that. I like to think of it much more seamless than that, and one of the things I advocate is promoting well-being generally, promoting positive well-being, positive mental health is about working within communities and working within society and helping people on a wider level than just sitting people down and doing an hour a week therapy with them. So yeah, I have a kind of different take.
So it's not three different phases. If I'm in trouble, I see a coach. If it gets worse, I see a psychologist. If it gets really bad, I see a psychiatrist.
I think often, if you're in real trouble, you could see a psychologist and a psychiatrist at the same time. Yeah, I think you can have those two. In some cases, you need more psychiatry because it's much more about the medication. And I would say most people could benefit from having a coach at some stage in their life. Maybe time dependent, but yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like. What he's trying to understand from you, there are two types of people. One who are impacted by nature and they are depressed. They come to you. There are people who create problems for themselves, in turn creating problems for people around them. So, which of these guys are hard to handle for you?
Okay, I'll try to answer briefly.
Sure.
I could talk for an hour on this, or more. The distinction between nature and nurture is a really, really interesting one, and across different kind of problems, there is, there's evidence for both and for the interaction between nature and nurture, between maybe our genes and our biology and our environment, and maybe the choices that we make. So I would always say when I'm working with the clients that I work with, I'm kind of looking at both. Maybe that person has a certain temperament, which maybe they inherited or they're born with, or it just came. But maybe part of what they're struggling with is to do with life circumstances as well. It gets kind of quite muddled when you look at the two together. But I don't think it's as clear cut as saying someone is born with a problem, so therefore that's more severe than somebody who had certain life experiences and they've got more chance. What we know sometimes is that people are born into the world and actually they're doing really, really well, and they have lots of adversity and lots of trauma in their early life, and that affects them, really knocks them off, off piste, and then we have to support them and help them quite intensively.
And where does the ego part between two individuals, it creates problems, the inflated egos, and it impacts the relationships. So how do you deal with all this? When you bring their egos down, is counseling the only way? Or?
I didn't talk about the ego so much, just because that's the ego, superego really comes from kind of psychoanalytic traditions. I'm much more, I guess, as you may pick up, I work with people, even my therapy is much more about coaching. It's very much about forming that kind of relationship. So I think it's always about developing a person's awareness. So we use the term sometimes metacognition, which is the idea that the person is developing awareness of themselves, their own thought processes, but also what may be making me feel this way. It could be my life circumstances, it could be my past, part of it could be naturally the way I am as a person.
Thank you. So I encourage you to take his contact number and reach out to him if you want to connect more and get more information about what he does and everything. But I'm going to show you a small magic right now. All right? He's going to pick up a card and he's going to read out what's in it, and it's going to be relevant to everything that he said right now. Let's try.
This one.
Yep.
This one.
Now this one.
Oh, listen. If you are not a brand today, you will not be a business tomorrow.
Okay, that was that was this is actually the personal branding Natalia. She picked this card, So that was quite ironical. But go ahead, pick another one. Let's try. The magic has to work. Only then it's a magic.
Strategy is the alignment of direction, people, process, structure, and capital.
You're picking the wrong cards. All right.
Alignment of people.
Okay, I will pick a strategy.
Absolutely.
It's all about strategy over here.
Yes, they're very organizational in business.
Yep. But it's all about people. It's all about people over here. What we're talking is,
It will be something from here which my wife noticed. The unconscious does what the conscious thinks that conscious does.
The unconscious does.
What the conscious thinks the conscious does.
Okay.
Super. All right. So thank you so much,
Thank you.
Dr. David Lee. Please give it up for David Lee.